Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to, I think this is part 7, probably 8. Now, we are getting closer to interpret the individual regulation, and at this point we have come to section 22 of the Clean Air Regulation 1974, where I will show you, I'm not the best person, but this is based on my experience in practice and my studies and my yeah, that would be noise regulation in practice for that bike, two-stroke. Okay. Um, Interpreting section 22, I might be getting into clean air regulation in the next, I think in the next episode already. But for the moment, let us check the major provision under the Environmental Quality Act, which is section 22. This is because of vast charges in court is based on this section. It is read with clean air regulation. Now let us take a look what the regulation state. Okay, sorry, what this act now this is coming from the law itself. Section 22 is actually controlling release of matters, release of air impurity into the atmosphere. Take a look at this. Okay. Now, the word is, okay, what do you understand with the word restriction? Restriction on the pollution of the atmosphere. Now, in practice, restriction means, in legal term, restriction means we can release air impurity. Thank you very much. You hear that? These people are doing a favor for the environment. They are recyclers. Okay, we have got to pay some respect to these people. Yeah, beli besi buruk. Siuku Tochua or Pochua, I can't remember. Never mind, let us continue. Sorry about the disturbance. I'm not living in a condominium, okay, or a bungalow. I'm just it's a normal intermediate house here. Now, the word restriction means we can release air impurity into the air. All right. Now, as I go on, if you are smart enough, all the videos that I have posted in YouTube, you can assemble them and make a playlist in a folder, manage them properly, and use it when you have to. For example, when you got job rotation in the factory, you can use this video to aid your own presentation. Okay, and you can pause the video anytime you like and explain them your audience based on your operation with your own words. All right, so let's continue with this as I interrupted in that manner. Now, we can pollute the air. There's another word of saying it. You know, there's another way of saying it. We can pollute the air, but to a certain level, to a certain concentration, or in environmental engineering term, we use the word to a certain environmental load. Load is mass per unit time. That is for me more important than just regulating concentration. Now, let's take a look. Look, the law says no person shall, look, unless license. What does it mean? Emit or discharge any environmental hazardous substances, pollutants, or wastes into the atmosphere in contravention of the acceptable conditions specified under Section 21. Now, one by one. It simply means if we have to emit air impurities, for example, dust, okay, let's assume that we are only legalized to emit dust, okay, or total particulate matter, say for example not more than 50 milligram per cubic meter. That's the new law, okay, assuming we are only allowed to discharge less than 50 milligram per meter cube of dust from our chimney. Chimney of what? Say our dust collector or our scrubber, right? Or our electrostatic precipitator. Let's assume we are regulated only to emit not more than 50 milligram per meter cube. Suddenly, you have got your annual plant maintenance, and there you are. You have got to do a plant maintenance of your dust collector, for example, or your scrubber. But your operation is still ongoing. You can't afford, the factory can't afford to stop. Okay, but you know, maintenance has to keep a schedule of maintaining your air pollution control equipment at certain times, say once in a year, or maybe once in 6 months. It depends on the type of dust collector you have. But you can't afford to stop the operation. You can't afford to stop those processes that keep emitting dust. What do? In that case, it is called a scheduled maintenance, meaning you know that you are going to do maintenance, and by virtue of that activity, you know that you have to discharge air impurities, or in that case, total particulate matter more than 50 milligram per cubic meter. What do if you know it? Now, HSC manager, please be careful in this. Competent person, dust collector, please understand this. Normally, the engineer who makes the maintenance, they know how long it takes. 8 hours, 1 whole day, 2 days, or 3 days, depending on the extent of maintenance work that you got to do, and depending on the type of air pollution control equipment that you have. Some air pollution control equipment require more time. Some others require just a short time. So you know best. What do? This is where we have to apply for a contravention license. Do you see that? Contravention license to DOE. We apply for contravention license to emit more than 50 milligram per liter of dust from our operation from, for example, 21st of August, or from, let's say, 21st of August until 23rd of August 2020. That has got to be submitted to DOE. That is an application of license, and there is license application form. You got to go to DOE in advance. All right, you got to take the form. You got to fill up the form. You got to prepare yourself with your maintenance procedure. What are the items that you are going to look at, and what are the potential replacement? And most important, how long would you take to do it? And then only you are licensed to emit those total particulate matter more than 50 milligram per meter cube for 3 days. And that 3 days, you are licensed to pollute. Got it? I hope you are able to follow, but in practice, unfortunately, in practice, we do this maintenance quietly, and we replace those filter socks or dust collector cartridges, vertical cartridges, horizontal cartridges, or even the socks of our filter bag, and at the same time emitting some dust until our neighbor open their eyes, and when they're just about to, inform somebody, our work is done. That is normally in practice. But never mind. I am not telling you what to do, but right now I'm interpreting the law, what we are supposed to do. Okay? But remember, our job is not to pollute the environment. Our job. That is the main objective of having competent person. That's the main aim of having the law. And that's the main function of the DOE to prevent pollution. So please have that idea in mind, okay? At least in the back of your mind, you have that feeling of that sense of responsibility, okay? Now let's take a look. Acceptable as a condition just now. How much? 50 milligram per cubic meter. That is the stipulated, that is called the acceptable condition specified under section 21. So when you look at the law, especially the regulation, you see a lot of limits, emission limits. All right. Collectively, all these are categorized as acceptable conditions specified under section 21 of the law. This is the power of Director General, Minister and Director General to stipulate emission limits. Got it? Okay. All right. I can't do much with this video. I'm trying my best as if I could see you in front of me. But since 1997, I've been doing public training, in-house training. I've never been in this situation where I'm just facing my laptop. I don't see people in front of me. I don't see faces, but I'm learning. I'm learning to do this video. But automatically, I feel like that is another two-stroke again. I believe that is more than 99 decibel A at half the RPM for the maximum horsepower. I think that one cannot. That's worse than the SC project of my friend ZX10. Now, sorry, ZX10R Kawasaki, the same bike used by Jonathan Rhee, who won the SBK multiple times. All right, forget it. Now, look at this part. Look. Can you read this? We are considered. This is saying that what are the situations that we are considered legally under the law to have polluted the atmosphere? What situation? Look at A. Places, any matter. Look at this word. Look at this word. You're there. What do you understand by this? You want me to give an example? Yeah. Which factory? Which industry? Okay, what I can think of right now is perhaps, okay, let's take something which is common. You like to drink coffee? Yeah, you do. Okay. Okay, let us take a coffee packaging plant, coffee powder packaging plant. After grinding of coffee seeds, and after all those processes, cooking, etc., blah blah blah, until they get the coffee powder, then it goes into the hopper or where they load from what you call pneumatic hopper onto coffee bags, for example. And during that process, there are some spillage on the floor. Got it? It is in the factory, not outside, in the factory. But that factory has got ventilation. Got it? And forklift is moving here and there, assuming, okay? And those coffee powder goes from one place to another via the forklift, tire that roll on, and it got scattered in some places until it goes outside the factory. So you can see those powder even at areas outside the production premise. Now, that situation, as you know, when wind blow, look at the word may. When wind blow hard enough, that dust can be dislodged from the surface of the tar and get airborne. And as it gets airborne, that in legal term is already air pollution. Do you follow? Therefore, when DOE comes to this factory, as they see powder, fine powder particles that can be blown away with the wind, not yet blown away, but still on the floor, at that point, please do not be offended if the DOE issue us an offense that we have placed a matter which is coffee powder or coffee mixer, what do you call it, coffee, what do you call it, that coffee creamer powder, or maybe in a sulfuric acid manufacturing sulfur powder is placed in an open yard where it may be released into the atmosphere, an offense under section 22 of this particular act. We can be summoned to court just for this. Enough evidence of pictures. A picture of the dust or the powder or whatever light materials on the floor of the premise or surrounding the premise or within the premise manufacturing area that relate to our process is a good evidence to display before the judge that we are already offending section 22 of the Environmental Quality Act, which is about restriction on pollution of the atmosphere. Got it? I hope that is clear. Look at this one, B. What is that? Odor, smell. Now, well, most of us are aware that some smell from industries are indeed, look at the word, obnoxious or offensive. In the beginning, let me give you an example. Some factory, when we arrive within the vicinity of the factory, we can smell some peculiar smell, which is not accustomed to our normal daily life, but it is inherent smell of that particular process. For example, palm oil mill. If you are from Kuala Lumpur or Kuala Lumpur, coming down to some of the suburbs or villages where you find some palm oil mill, as you enter, maybe 1.5 to 2 kilometers away from the factory, you, depending on which direction the wind is blowing on that day, you can smell the inherent smell of a palm oil mill. It's a smell of palm oil. In fact, palm oil effluent or even palm oil extracted from their hydrocyclone or even autoclave. The smell is inherent. But our palm oil, which has become our cooking oil, doesn't have that smell, luckily. Okay, but this is called inherent smell. Is it obnoxious? Subjective. Is it offensive? Subjective. This is why the authority doesn't go and charge a palm oil mill for the so-called odor, which is offensive. It's not obnoxious. It's not dangerous. Obnoxious is dangerous, but offensive. Maybe offensive for a first timer, but it is subjective, isn't it? But if you go to areas which is very near to some petrochemical plants or even oil refinery, you will also find some smell which is an inherent property of that particular industry, such as the smell of slop oil and polypropylene manufacturing, polyethylene manufacturing. Would that be offensive to you? You're working in the plant, you don't feel it. But visitors come to your doorstep. Hey, what smell is this? It's so pungent. Oh, it is slop oil. Is it bad? Yeah, it smells bad. Spend 5 minutes in the factory, and then you will realize that you don't detect smell anymore. Okay, that is called inherent smell. That is why smell is rather subjective, right? And in this country, it's not much action has been taken on smell because our nose we have got nerve endings which is attuned in a way that we can accept certain smell sometime. Okay, and that is I'm interpreting this law. For example, if there is really a smell which is obnoxious, dangerous smell. Okay, for example, the smell of mercaptan from an LPG or a gas bottle filling plant. Mercaptan is an indicator gas indicating the presence of natural gas or maybe butane. You know better than I do. Okay, and when we are able to smell mercaptan, it is a smell very much similar to the smell of our cooking gas at home. So when we smell that mercaptan smell, our mind is already associated to the fact that, oh, there is a release of cooking gas. So it is a safety feature to have that smell, indicating that we need to check our pipes or our hoses or even the gas bottle to ensure there is no leak. That is a safety feature, mercaptan, and it is offensive. The smell is offensive. But continuous release of those offensive smell that would give an impact to residential areas nearby, I believe that is another issue. Okay, so luckily in our country we don't have this expert smell. In Scandinavian countries, well, we had visited there before undergoing my professional training. There is so-called nose experts. 27 people, young people, 27 people. Each person is given a kind of smell, and most of the smell are not really toxic until they die. It doesn't kill them, but enough for them to detect the smell. These are expert noses. One person might be able to smell toluene. He's an expert nose for toluene. The other is for pyridine. The other perhaps is for some other chemicals. Mostly they would take people who are bachelor, no liability, no family. And every month they would come down to the lab for a nose calibration, calibrate the nose, but not with a screwdriver. But they were given a room whereby two protruding tubes gets into the nose, and that smell, there is two buttons, red and blue. If they detect the smell, because a chemist will be on the other side releasing the bottle of canister to a certain flow rate, when our friend detect the smell that they're supposed to be expert of, once they detect, they press the green button. The chemists know the concentration and flow rate. So that's how it works. And when they can't stand the smell anymore, it has come to their threshold upper level, they press the red button. Then the lab chemist would take down the concentration, so-called threshold value for that person. And that is what they call an exercise to determine the consistency of this person, to detect the smell at what concentration, and to have what they call a threshold value of what concentration. So the chemist would jot down this data, and when there is say a complaint from the public somewhere in the area, all the chemists got to do, of course they are being called up by the Ministry of Environment to do sampling. All he does is carry with him a Tadler bag and a Kitagawa pump, get to the place where he detect the smell, and start to on the pump, suck in the air into the Tadler bag that he's holding, bring back to the lab. And what they do, he will call all the 27 people, the so-called expert noses, fill up the hoses and the tubes to the nose by the side of a wall, and every person will take turn. If they detect the smell that they are expert of, they will press the green button. So then with that exercise, the chemist and the ministry would know, oh, this is a smell of what? Oh, toluene, for example. Oh, formaldehyde, all right? And from my conversation with them, they have luxurious insurance scheme, which I've never thought of. And I thought that if I was not married then, I would also go to that country and stay there and live like a rich person, becoming a nose expert. Well, it's just part of my experience over there. So the next one, C, look. Which is requiring license. We are not allowed to burn any waste of our trade, our processes, or any waste belonging to our industry. We are not allowed to burn waste. Thank you very much. Grass cutting at the middle of my video. All right, these are maintenance people who's doing a good job for the community. All right, yeah, I hope you can hear me still. I have to continue. All right, burn any waste in any manner, whether in a closed chamber or in the open. If it's in the open now, you've got a section prohibiting open burning. Now, we are not allowed to burn waste from our trading, from our businesses. Okay, for example, we have a warehouse and we take in goods from retailers, distributors, and we got packaging material that we don't want, we cannot burn them. Now it's not happening. Then those years it happened, but today we are all recycling. Remember, we must recycle all this so-called waste. And if you ask me today, as some of you already know, waste doesn't exist in my dictionary. Okay, I've got to admit that, and we've got to learn more and more every day. Look, let's get into the next one. If he uses any fuel burning equipment, what is this? What are fuel burning equipment? They are, in simple terms, this is an equipment, usually internal combustion, usually using fuel to run and do certain work. For example, pumps. You got pumps which is petrol engine powered. Some pumps are diesel engine powered. All right, so these are fuel burning equipment, as I mentioned, like generator sets, burner for our cement kiln, for example, furnace for our glass manufacturing, for example, furnace for our what they call metal smelting, sinter plants, and all this. Even burner for our asphalt production. So all these and many others, all right, oven included, okay. Excuse me. All these equipments are called fuel burning equipment because they use fuel to run the engine. Simple as that. All right. Under this law, we are not allowed to use this equipment. All right. Unless we have pollution, air pollution control equipment. Okay, we'll go. This is quite general. This law is quite general. We'll go in detail when we look into Clean Air Regulation 2014. So this is in brief. Well, when I do in-house training, it could be deeper than this, but this is the best I could do for this. Unless people ask me question, then I would answer. This is what happened when we have live training face to face. People are free to ask questions. It's more exciting to do it that way. But for this purpose, for you to use this video, I hope my explanation is enough for you to understand. So the types of fuel burning equipment, it can be using diesel fuel, it could be using light fuel oil, or it could be using petrol, or even it could be using liquid gas, these are, or even they're using solid fuel like coal and those things like wood chips. These are all considered fuel, and the law says any fuel. Okay, now these are all restricted. We are not allowed to have all this without control equipment equipped unless we are licensed. Nonetheless, we have got to make emissions tests first to check whether the emission from our fuel burning equipment pass the law or surpass the emission limit. Then there's another thing. Okay, if it is surpassing or exceeding the limit stipulated, then we have got to have a proper air pollution control devices. All right, can I go to the next slide? Otherwise, it's going to be too lengthy for you. Now, excuse me. This is the liability for offending that particular law, section 22. If we are found guilty in court, we are liable to a maximum of 100,000 ringgit and or 5 years imprisonment. But who goes to prison? It depends on who goes to court, or it depends on who the prosecution officer has what they call submitted to the court for examination. Most of the case in this country, industries would plead guilty, but there are some cases that they have got cross-examination. But eventually, as I said earlier in my first part, competent person, please do not go to court until you are subpoenaed by the court. All right, do not go to court because you are not the decision maker for the company that you're working for. You are empowered with authority to be a competent person and to liaise with DOE and reporting to DOE, etc. You are empowered to do those duties, but decision making is not from you, it is from the top management. You got to do your duty carefully, and if there is any peculiarity of your control equipment, please inform your top management in writing, and please have an evidence of that, because I don't want competent person to be jailed. They are good people. For me, competent person are doing a favor for the company as well as for the DOE. All right, and um, please stay away from court. All right, if your company is facing court case, get a lawyer. And for lawyers, please get industrious lawyers who are good not only in talking but doing. All right, some lawyers are lazy to come to our factory. Competent person would prepare the chronology of events and brief the lawyer what happened, what are the issue, and what are the liability, and explain the law to them and let them represent you in court. Let the lawyer represent the company in court. Let the lawyer represent the top management, decision makers in court. Even top management, you shouldn't go to court unless you don't want to plead guilty and challenge the authority. Then you might say, we don't plead guilty, and then challenge. So it depends on who prepared the case best would win. If you think you have got enough evidence to say that you're guilty, for example, you have so-called your dust collector suddenly, due to lightning, it struck your dust collector, the dust collector burst, and then off you go, all the dust scattered to your neighbor's background, and of all the time the DOE was passing by, found that, bring you to court, then that would be an accidental release. But DOE, as far as I know, they are trained. Accidental release has got some buffer, right? And normally the authority wouldn't take that as offending the law, because those are accidental releases. But they can do it if they find that we purposely skip our routine maintenance work. And if they find that their competent person has asked for a budget to replace 10 cartridges in your dust collector, and the top management didn't approve the budget, and indeed the next day the cartridge burst, and DOE comes and takes sample and find the company in court, then that is an evidential. That is already a good evidence for the DOE to bring you to court. All right, so these are all subjective. It involves human being and human perception and mentality. But what I'm trying to display is, this is your liability if we are charged in court for not water pollution, please, air pollution. All right, section 22 is air pollution. Some correction here, please. Thank you. Let's go into the next slide. I have some of I think some pictures of some of the industrial plants. I think some of you know this factory. If you do know this factory, shut up. Do not spell it in the WhatsApp group, okay? Now, look at this. What do you see? Look at this. These are all dust, metallic dust, and dust like this, as I did my studies, it can be big in particles, 120 microns in size, My supervisor taught me particle size distribution when we do air pollution engineering. And according to him, if you are able to see metallic dust emitted in the air, if it is visible, not just metallic dust, any kind of dust, according to him, if it is visible, usually the size of the particle is more than 80 microns. So what we see here are dust which are bigger or maybe equivalent to 80 microns, okay? But some areas around here, we don't quite see the dust, especially the neighbors. They might get this dust in the invisible form. And when the dust is present, but it is relatively invisible, according to my supervisor, he said the dust size is less than 80 microns. If it is 80 microns and like 10 microns to 80 microns in size, this metallic dust, it could be any kind of metal, it could be mercury, it could be cadmium, it could be chromium in the dust. And we are in the next door in an office with an air conditioner, and we thought we are safe because I did a research on air conditioner. The split type air conditioner, the filter is only 80 microns, and the best aircon I saw from my examination, personal examination, the pore size, the smallest pore size for our office building aircon is 60 microns. I can't mention to you the brand, but it is an expensive brand. 60 microns. So dust particles smaller than 60 microns can pass to the next building, get into the building office, and there you are. We are busy in front of this laptop inhaling, and we are inhaling particle sizes which are smaller than 60 microns, which can get into our throat and nose. But lucky enough, our nose and throat, we can filter off something like 25 microns, and it gets to our lungs. Some of these invisible dust can be smaller than 10 microns. That worries me. It gets into our lungs, involved in gas exchange in our lungs between the alveoli and all the arteries and veins, the mucous membrane over our alveolus, involved in gas exchange, carbon dioxide and oxygen, and including hemoglobin, getting into hemoglobin before it is flows back into the master pump. The master pump is the heart, pumped it to all our body parts containing such heavy metals coming from our neighbors' air pollution control equipment, which is kaput like in this picture. I'm not sure industrial hygienists, how well would you play a part in this one, because industrial hygienists are medical doctors. They are qualified medical doctors. I hope they are given some grant to do some research. But for health safety, as far as I know, is they are only talking about lead in the blood and audiometry tests, and that's it. I'm not sure about having analysis of cadmium, chromium, mercury, etc. in the blood, but this is air pollution causing an impact to human health. We do not know how far this sort of dust has traveled. From my studies, dust which is around 80, more than 80 microns, was able to travel about 30 kilometers from where it was released. That study was done in the year 2002 with some students from USM, and some industrial player are funding us to do that work. So we rented equipment and we ran the tests, and we had to stay there for 6 months to look into a few meteorological conditions, especially wind speed, wind velocity, and wind direction. and we got to take samples, the emissions coming from Seberang Perai 2 industrial area, kind of, we can't mention which factory, but we had studied that. It can go as far as 30 kilometers. We can sample those dust, which is of our concern as far as Batu Ferringhi beaches. Okay, so that is how much impact of all this dust. So it's about air pollution. It's not just academic. You and me, we are living in this world with air pollutants, air impurities, ubiquitous. So we got to be very careful, not just learning this because we are scared of the law. So that's not the way we do it, all right? And that's not my interest, to be scared of the law. And I don't want to scare you with the law too. Now, there are other emissions coming from, this is a typical, this was after I climbed down from this tech. I was young, way back in early 90s. I was playing tennis. I still play a rugger once in a while. Those days, but most of the weekend I'm on my RD350LC two-stroke. Those were the days. Now, we went to this factory to do stack sampling, and I took this picture after it was done. Immediately after we came down, the boiler man overfed the boiler with a fiber, and it goes up in smoke like that. This is, if you are familiar with Ringerman chart, this is chart number 5 already. This is literally is number 5 or number 4. And over here, if you look at this shade of dust, this is something like number 2. Okay, so and this is a 40 feet above ground, and I was telling myself why I was up there. All right, and then we did the Ringelmann chart, and this particular palm oil mill actually failed for this chimney because they have emitted more than 15 minutes in just 1 hour. Okay, so they were compounded. Now this is an impact, but there is a difference between the previous picture and this one. This is highly organic smoke. It comes from the combustion of palm oil fruit, the empty bunch, the fiber. So it is biodegradable. It's a different thing, you know. Even though it can go far, but when I say it is safer, biodegradable, doesn't mean that you can go up here and put your nose on top of that chimney. That's not what I meant. It is biodegradable at, of course, certain concentration. More than that, your body, your lungs will have conditions like experience, you know, anoxic condition. Then you can faint and maybe even coma. So don't do that, all right? But at certain concentration, our exposure to this particular kind of smoke, the body can assimilate the dust as it gets into our esophagus or our throat and our lungs. We have enzyme, our mucus, but of course we cough a lot, and this is organic air emission coming from palm oil mill. This is boiler stack. This is your platform. This is the monkey ladder, and there is a sampling pot here. When I talk about stack sampling, I will talk about the chimney diameter and the sampling port diameter, why we have to have a high sampling port, why not down there. Those are all fluid dynamics. I'm not a mechanical engineer. I learned from them, and that's how I made myself what I am. Well, I'm not a person who knows everything under the sky, but I'm still learning at this day. This is another picture. Oh, I remember this. If you know the factory, shut up, as I said. All right. Now, they have just replaced a new chimney. This is new. This is new. Oh, I can write. Let me see. This is new. The entire stack length is new. They just replaced it a day before this incident, and they are having a metal furnace, actually smelting aluminum from aluminum ingots. Okay. However, once it has been installed and ready to work, they start the furnace, and the contractor was about to pack and go, and suddenly when they run the furnace, the smelting furnace, they found that the smoke doesn't come out from the chimney, but instead the smoke come out from the furnace door. In fact, the pressure in the furnace built up and presses the furnace door, and smoke comes out up from the rooftop. So the smoke, instead of coming through, going through the chimney, it goes out of the roof. This is a classic picture. I happened to be called up to visit them, and we had discussions, and this is the point when I just resigned from the DOE. I think about 2 years after I resigned, I was called up to help out, and we gave them advice. We got them to stop the operation. They said they can't stop the smelting operation once it's up. So I said, you better fill up your contravention license application. So they are legalized, and when we were visited with the contractor's engineer, they found out that the contractor has installed the, what do you call it, induced draft fan in a reverse manner. So it happened. All right, accidents do happen, but we got to be able to apprehend this based on the law. Okay, I've come to the end of today's this particular part, and because the next one I'm going to interpret the clean air regulation, so stay tuned with my uploads. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and when you do that, you're able to get this information of the law as soon as I upload, and you can manage it accordingly, and you can even train your people directly, or you can assemble them in a kind of playlist, which I do not know what to do, how to do it right now. I got to ask my daughter and my son. They know better than me. So until the next episode, which is soon, we will talk about Clean Air Regulations 2014. All right. So, as a Muslim, I hope you are aware and able to capture the Section 22 part of the Clean Air, the Environmental Quality Act. Remember, Section 22 is a section. We are still in the main act. We are about to get into the regulation next one, Clean Air Regulation 2014. So, as a Muslim, I wish everybody Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Have a good day, and stay safe, stay home. Yeah, please pray that we get this vaccine against COVID-19 soon as possible, so that we can resume our normal life. Our life has never been like this before, so we are learning to adapt to this new life, and even training like this. I have to do online in-house training from time to time, which is not the same as when we do face-to-face. So from that experience in online training, they call it online in-house training, I developed this for you so that you are able to do it without me, and if you need me, I can come down maybe a shorter day period to answer question. All right, so we can cut short a lot of work. So thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Take care. All the best to everybody.